endless skies. Oh, I'm living that nomad life, city to city, feeling alive. From mountain tops to ocean drives, unchained, I thrive, I thrive.
Okay.
Thank you so much for joining us here today on Nomads 50 Plus. Today we have a special guest, Jada Butler. I think I pronounced your name correctly, who's going to tell us all about her amazing journey. So tell us a little bit about yourself and how you became a Nomads 50 Plus.
Well, 50 plus came naturally because I was born in 1970. So we got that going for me.
But you
I'm
don't
happy to-
look like you actually qualify.
I didn't have to
Seriously.
do anything for that, right? The nomad part, however, was obviously by choice. And I may put my glasses on and off because being 50 plus, I sometimes can see arm lengths away and sometimes I can't. So I'm always doing the glass dance.
Yeah.
So, it's funny because it kind of dropped out of nowhere, honestly. And my husband and I started watching financial planning shows about when to retire, how to retire, the FIRE movement. Very intrigued about retiring early. What does that look like? And we just really started casually talking about retiring or working less and working toward something. That's what all the retirement guys tell you to do, right? Like, don't just retire and stare at the walls. Retire to something.
Well, yeah, you have to have something to do. It's like so many people think about the end of things, but they don't think about the beginning of new things, right?
Absolutely. And so we had just kind of like that end that you're talking about. We had just finished remodeling a farmhouse that we bought during COVID, and the world shut down. And so we had this project house for 2.5 years, and we just poured our resources, our time. We learned how to do so much of the work ourselves because we couldn't get anybody to help us. And It was this wonderful adventure, right? Like building this house, creating it, envisioning it. And it was kind of coming to an end. And we started looking around like, okay, what's next? Like, we finished it. Now we could just like sit here and live in it. But it felt like there was a tug for something different, something more. So we started just talking about retirement and about what that would look like. And we started looking at places in the US where we could possibly retire. We do the normal things like where is at a lower cost of living, where there's no, income tax, all those strategic things that people start to do. And we started looking at the housing and we were like, well, we can't afford any of this. Like it's like millions of dollars to just get like a little house in some of these states that make it so that, are more attractive to retire.
Exactly. I feel the exact same way here. I mean, we've been in our house for about 17 years here, and it's the same thing. It's like we were thinking about, well, where can we go? What can we do? Where else can we move to? And the value of everything else has gone up so high, and we already live in a pretty decent area, except for the fact that, of course, we're surrounded by parking lots. that it's nice enough to stay, but still.
Yeah. So we just sort of, so we're tossing around some things and some ideas, and I don't know. I think we stumbled upon the Blue Zones Netflix series, and we watched that, and we were so intrigued. It was this simplicity of life, and we had attempted minimalism at one point in our life, and then sort of got off track, and suddenly we had a house stuffed with things again, and and renovating it and decorating it like it was the nicest. I wrote an article about this. It was like the nicest couch I had ever owned, right? Like suddenly it's like, okay, finally, in my 50s, I have like this really nice couch. And so it became this symbol of, well, okay, but does it make you happy? Like now you've got these things, right? And you've got the nice big refrigerator, you've got this fancy couch. And at the end of the day, you look around and go, what does my soul crave? And so we really started thinking about life and living longer and living a healthier lifestyle, really intrigued by the blue zones and then of course, when you start watching things like that, Netflix starts suggesting, or YouTube starts suggesting other videos. And so suddenly this video about retiring in Europe popped up, and we were like, what? Wait a
Never even
minute.
thought about it, right?
Who does that? And so we had talked about wanting to travel more, but when you have a house and you travel, there's always this, someone's got to cut the grass, someone's got to watch the cat, I mean, there's all
Yeah,
these
lots of
things that you
maintenance.
have, lots of maintenance. And so we started binge watching, I would say, all these shows on retiring in Europe and retiring in Portugal, and specifically, and how there was a lower cost of living, that the healthcare was excellent, it was very safe.
Mm,
At the time, there was the NHR, which was this tax strategy, which gave you a little bit of a benefit tax wise, and all of a sudden there were all these things that made so much sense.
right. It's almost like fate was drawing you to that
Yes,
place.
right. And so I actually was like, honey, I think we need to consider this. And so we just planned a trip to Portugal. We had never, we have 6 kids. We had been head down, forward focused on launching our children. And for the past several decades, that's all it was. And the
Yeah.
last child was in college. The last child was, like in the chute, and all the others who are
Ready to
already
go.
like, yeah. And there was a sliver of time, and it was like, you know what? Why don't we just take a quick vacation? Let's just see what it's like. So we came over for a vacation, and we were just instantly like, we got to do this.
Nice.
And we just put the ball in motion. And I just really said to the universe, look, if this is something that we need to do, doors need to open, because it's not that it's a hard process. It's just, there's lots of steps.
Yeah.
And so we just started the process and went to the consulate and blah, blah, blah. And here we are.
Nice. So do you have any ties to Portugal at all? Like family
Zero.
ties?
None.
Zero.
Zero.
Wow.
I'm from Ireland. My husband's Italian.
Mhm.
And so, like most people in America, we immigrated over generations ago.
Right.
Our great grandparents came across for a better life. And so it seems ironic that there's this tug now to go back to your roots for this same thing,
Mhm. Yeah, it's interesting. So,
So
did you have any qualms about being in a Portuguese speaking country? Because Portuguese is apparently a really hard language to learn.
it is hard. And we are trying to learn it. And I didn't have, it's funny. People ask me all the time, like, how could you, like, that's a big, bold move, because we sold everything. We
Wow.
liquidated everything. We sold everything. We packed one suitcase and one backpack and bought a ticket. And a lot of people were like, well, that's crazy. Like,
Mm,
how can you do that? But I think in part because I've had loss in my life. Both of my parents are deceased,
mm.
and one of the things I didn't want to do was to stuff a house full of things and then pass away and have my children try to figure out what to do with it all, right?
Right.
Like what I had to do with when my parents passed away. And I started reading this. I ran across a blog, I think, called The Swedish Death Cleanse. And it talks about how in Sweden, in your like retirement age, you start downsizing, you
Yeah,
start
divest
Are
yourself
you familiar with it?
divest yourself of things. No, I've heard
Yeah.
of it, but I'm not too familiar with it. But you start divesting yourself of things as opposed to collecting more, like most Americans do.
Yes. Right. And so you start getting rid of things. You start giving things away. You start downsizing. And so in the idea that you really give your things that you love to the people you love while you're alive,
Yeah.
and they get to enjoy that. And then when you pass, there's not this big mound of things to go through.
Right.
And so it kind of fell in line with our minimalist sort of love of really simplifying. But we kind of took it to the extreme because we were like, okay, if we're going to do this, like my husband called it burning the ships. He's like, we have to burn the ships.
Yes, you have to
There's
burn your
no
ships.
going back.
I love that
You
phrase.
know?
I wish more people did
No.
it, but they don't.
No, because we
You
hang
gotta have that. You gotta
on.
have that safety net, right? Gotta go back. Gotta go back. If I don't
And
like it.
I can, yes, and that and being a therapist, I understand that need to want to like tether yourself to something, but it is in the literal letting go of everything and burning those ships and casting yourself out that you're gonna get the biggest benefit of growth.
Hmm.
Because there is no safety. You have to learn the language. You have to make an effort to fit in and learn. There's no going back.
Right.
You know, so I guess because my parents are gone and I didn't want to do that, you know, with my children, I wanted them to just, you know, have the things that I love now. Like, what a better gift. They're starting their young lives. They need things. Here, take them, you know.
Right.
But what it really did is it shifted everything. Instead of now clinging to my very precious new beautiful velvet green couch, which I adored, it suddenly became a thing.
It's funny how you mention the whole overall, putting this house together and making it exactly the way you liked it. And then at some point you just looked at it and said, this is not what I wanted. Even though all the steps up to that point were putting together the perfect home.
Yeah.
And then did you remember that moment when you were standing in your living room or something like that and going, this is not really what I wanted? Do you remember that moment?
And I do. And what's funny is it perplexed everyone around us.
I can imagine
because
you were going wholeheartedly in one direction. And I'm sure that everyone you knew and you were talking to knew where you were going. And then you just sort of pivoted.
We did. I mean, this was so designed. I had a beautiful designed, finally, like my dream vegetable garden. Dream garden. My husband built a front porch. We built a deck. We gutted the whole house. We turned one bedroom into our closet, right? Huge walk-in closet.
I love it.
We turned one bedroom into our workout room. We had bikes. We had 2 treadmills. I mean, it was the cat's meow.
Wow, it's like a hotel.
It was designed for us perfectly to a T. And so when we literally, my husband put the last nail in the front porch. We sat on it one time in the winter, huddled in blankets, and realized that we would never sit on this porch in the springtime. We both just knew.
Right.
And it suddenly felt like we had completed what we came to do. We breathed life into this old house, and we kind of made it exactly what we wanted. And then at the end of the day, it was almost like the building of it was really what we needed to do.
So it's almost like you had to finish it before you realized what you really wanted after that.
Yeah. As soon as we finished it, we thought it's time to do something different.
Right.
And everyone around us was like, are you sure you're not crazy? Because you haven't even enjoyed it. You've been working on it.
Yeah,
for
at least
years.
spend years and years enjoying it before you decide to change everything up.
No, and we were like, no, it was the process of doing it that we realized we loved. And once it was done, it was done. And we both felt this urge that there was something else we needed to go do. And that's the other thing. Other people will say it's really unusual that a husband and wife feel the exact same way. And, a lot of women were like, how did you get rid of all your shoes? Like, how did you get rid of your clothes? And I'm like, At first it was hard
Mm.
because I was like, well, I only wore that dress one time and this one still has the tags on it.
Oh
Like
yeah,
how
yeah.
do
I know that feeling.
right? But then once you get in the mode and once we knew that, we had an offer on the house and we literally had a hard stop. It was just so incredibly freeing to just like
Yeah. Yeah,
chunk it.
but you have to have that hard stop, like you said. I mean, you can't just leave it
Mhm.
amorphous. You can say, "Oh, we're going to move to
No,
Portugal one day." If you do that, then you will never move to Portugal. Period.
no, you won't.
You have to say, "This is when we're doing." We have to. Did you put the house up for sale first, or did you have a place to land before you left?
So, in Portugal, when you do apply for your visa, and there's two different routes that you can go visa. Well, there used to be three, but I think they got rid of the golden visa. But D7 or D8. D7 is the retirement visa. D8 is a digital nomad visa, and we were
Mhm.
both still working. My husband and I both owned our own companies, which made this an easier thing for us to do because we could still work.
Right. And you were
And
both location independent already, or did you have?
correct.
Okay. Great.
Well, I was. My husband wasn't.
Right.
And so it was the impetus he needed to start his own consulting company.
Right. So he
So
wanted to do it anyway, I'm assuming, at some point.
he did.
Yeah.
He did want to do it. And so what was the question? I forgot.
Did you
How did we do it?
did you like already have a place to land in Portugal when you put your
Oh,
house
right.
up for sale?
So the process when you apply for the visa, depending on which one you do, it doesn't matter. And in either case, you have to have a 1-year contract on an apartment in Portugal. Now we had only been there one time, so we used a service actually when we went over there. One of the YouTubers that we watched, we actually reached out to and said, "Hey, we're in Portugal. Can we meet you?" And so they gave us some guidance. They told us
Nice.
what to do. They helped us find a 1-year lease agreement so that we could start the process of the visa. So we technically had a place, but we never lived there because the process took
But you needed it
like
for the process.
you needed it for the process. So we had something on paper, but we didn't actually ever physically live there. But we had to do that, yes.
Mm-hmm.
So and then we started the visa process, and you start that in the U.S. at the consulate, and you do all that process, and then we just lived in Airbnbs in the city in Chicago, where we're from, for about 6 months as we were kind of adjusting to this life as a nomad. We were
Right.
like, well, we don't want to sell everything and just go to Europe. Let's sell everything and then just be in the States near our kids, living in Airbnbs, just to get them sort of used to the idea that we're homeless now.
So this is after you sold your home. You said you
Yes.
started. Okay. And so what? Yeah, I was going to ask you earlier. What did the kids think? Oh, mom and dad are crazy. What are they doing?
One thought we were crazy. The one child
Only
who
one
was
out of the six. That's good.
yeah.
Good odds there.
So most of them were like, "That sounds great. Good for you guys."
Nice.
There was one child.
See,
who was
that's proper
living with
parenting.
us. Right. There was one child who was living with us at the time. He had graduated college and he was living at home. He had just gotten a job, but he really liked being at home because I cooked the meals and, the laundry, it was
Mhm.
done. And that was
Oh
a
yeah,
sweet
yeah. It's a
setup,
sweet deal. Absolutely.
And I said, you need to go live your life now, honey.
Yeah.
You've got it. And he was like, "No, I think I can. I'm going to wait about 6 months." And I was like, "No, I come up with sales for sale."
Yeah.
And so I kind of forced the issue
That's
on
the
that
way to do it. Sell your
Yeah.
how
He
to get
later
your kids out of
thanked
your
me.
house. Sell it.
Sell it. Yeah. And so then my baby was like, "Wait, mom, I was planning on coming back to live with you after graduation." I'm like, "Why would you do that? Like, that's not the
Yeah,
expectation.
that's not what you you shouldn't be doing that.
You go
Love it.
live on your own."
Yeah.
And so at first they were a little shell shocked because it seemed very fast. And the reason it felt fast is because once we applied for our visa, they announced the end of the NHR. And so we got in by the skin of our teeth,
Wow.
as they say. So we had to move quickly in order to secure that. And so
Nice.
we ended up having to put things like in turbo gear. We already knew we were doing it, but it made it much faster.
Right.
And so that's why, the house went up, and the most of the kids, except for the one that was living with us, was happy. And then he was like not so happy at the time, but has since come to, really appreciate the fact that it was really the wake up call he needed to like start his life. But really, most of them were really happy about finally doing something, for ourselves. Like, what, you've dedicated your life to us. You've helped us get started in life. Go do something for you. This is awesome.
Nice. Nice. And there was no issues with relocating yourselves. I mean, you said you're a therapist, and your husband was a consultant. And did you have clients or anything like that that you worry about, or did you get new clients where you went? Like, how did you keep the businesses going?
Yeah. So I as a therapist and a PA, so I do med management and therapy. And so I had started, like most therapists, in person, right? Like telehealth didn't even exist before COVID. It was just,
that's really
you
recent.
you always went to in person. So I had, for, a decade before, I had a brick and mortar. I worked for other people. I didn't have my own practice. And I was in office, and people came to see me, and that's just how it was. When COVID started in 2020 and we had to do telehealth, we had to pivot very quickly. And
Right.
after we sort of came back out of that, a lot of clients really wanted to continue telehealth.
Mm.
And the practice that I was at said, absolutely not. We're going back in person. Telehealth is a phase.
Even if the clients wanted it? Even if the clients wanted it? That's crazy.
Yeah. So that's when I was like, well, then I'm going to start my own practice, because I want to meet the demand of the people that are really asking for this. These are people that otherwise aren't getting services.
Yeah.
And I'm going to meet them where they are.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was the impetus of me starting my own business. So I started my own business, and it was still brick and mortar, right? I rented a space and people came in person, but more and more and more people still wanted telehealth. And even when I was in person, they would say, hey, can I just switch my appointment to telehealth today?
Yeah.
And so I went from 4 days in office to 3 days in office to 2 days in the office. And then I was like, this is silly. And so I was
surprised
like,
more people didn't want it right up front, because I mean, right after COVID, it's almost like there was this sea change in attitudes. It's like, oh, I don't need to talk to anybody face to face in person anymore. Like, I'm okay with Zoom. I'm okay with telehealth. Yeah.
I think some of the older clients, especially, were really comfortable with that in person, and they still craved that because that's what they knew. The young people were all about the telehealth.
Yeah.
And so I had a mix of clientele, and all the new people coming in were like, yeah, telehealth's great.
Yeah.
And all my older
people are lazy. They don't want to get up out of their chairs, and
right.
they just want to be able to open their phones and go, okay, hey, I can talk to my therapist like this. Why would I have to get in my car and battle traffic and all that stuff?
But there were some people who still really wanted that. So I had so then I held one day a month. I was like, okay, one day a month, I'm going to be in office for all those people that want to see me in person. And then those people sort of trickled off. And then that's when all of the Portugal thing started bubbling up. And I thought, well, I'm pretty much 100% telehealth.
Yeah. The thing that was tying you down disappeared, basically.
Exactly. And so when that became an option to really, and as a therapist and as a PA, I don't have to live in the state that my clients live in.
Because there's other medical professionals who do have that issue, right? Because I remember there's other types of therapists or psychologists, psychiatrists or whatever who do need to be in the state that they're practicing. There's these arcane rules, right?
Right. And as a PA, I don't have to be, you can have multiple state licenses and practice across state lines. And so obviously you can't live in like 5 states at one time, but you can
Right.
practice.
Yeah.
And so I reached out and I was like, okay, I investigated and they're like, there's no reason you can't live anywhere and
True.
do what you do. And I thought, well, if I can live anywhere and
That magic
we want to
word. I
travel
love that word.
anyway, right. So it was like, okay, so we're already got these wheels in motion. Um, you know, we're feeling this nudge. I now can work anywhere. I already have clients that are totally flexible with me being telehealth. You know, the way that we conduct business does not change. I still pop up on the computer.
Hmm.
And so it just became the wings really to kind of allow us to just really fly and let go of the the things that were keeping us kind of stuck.
Yeah. So you just still have clients in the US?
Mhm,
Are most of your clients still in the US? So these are the same clients that you had
mhm.
before you left.
Yep,
Cool.
correct. Yeah, yeah. So it's like nothing changed.
Nothing changed for your clients, but for you,
Right.
everything changed.
For me, everything changed. Right.
So did you
Right,
feel that you
exactly.
had to have, so you felt that you had to have that you had to keep the money going before you left? That was like a real, that was a domino that had to be in place before you went?
It was for me because I wasn't ready to not work. You know, like
Right.
we talked about in the beginning about retiring. You know, both my husband and I could retire, um, and but we neither one of us really want that yet. We
Right.
really love our jobs. We love the way we contribute and the way we give, you know, our services to the world. Like that still mattered.
Hmm.
Um, and we weren't ready to give that part up. Plus, you know, there's the uncertainty of we didn't want to tackle two things at one time, moving across the country and retiring at the same time. Like that
Right.
just seemed two really big changes. Whereas if we could keep one thing kind of normalized while we get used to living in a different place, then it just felt a little safer in that regard. Um, and it again, we really love our jobs, and
Right.
so it we weren't ready to give
Why
that
give
up.
it up when you don't have to, right? If they're already location
Yeah,
independent, it's fine.
yeah.
So you lived in some Airbnbs for a while, and then you decided to move to Portugal. Did you go to an apartment there, the same apartment that you'd leased, or did you
No,
find a
so
different place?
what we decided to do was the place that we had rented was in the Algarve, which is the southern
Oh, I
portion
hear that's
of
beautiful.
Portugal.
I hear that's
It's
beautiful.
lovely.
Mm.
It is beautiful. So we spent a month there, and then we decided to spend a month in Porto, which is the northern part of Portugal, and then we traveled all around up there, and then we
While you
spent
were
a
working, you were
month
still working and traveling at the same time?
working and yeah, that has always been the case. Now, both my husband and I work less. So we kind of, you know, we did go mostly part time for me. I went part time. And of course, he's starting his consulting business. So there's a lag time for him just to
Sure.
get things up and running. So we were always working, but we were traveling. And
Mm.
so we spent a month in the Algarves. We spent a month in Porto because we weren't exactly sure where we wanted to be in
Right. You were
Portugal.
researching where you wanted to be.
Yep, we were
Hmm.
still scouting. And so then we spent a month on Madeira Island. And it was after that 3-month tour, we went back to the US to visit and see family that we decided we really loved Madeira. And
Mm.
about that time, our lease was coming up in the Algarve.
Mm.
And so we decided to not renew that lease, but to then stay in Airbnbs in Madeira. And then eventually we signed a lease here for a year on the island.
Nice. And then, so I love the way you did this. It was very methodical. It's like boom, boom, boom. Is that the kind of person you are? Are you the methodical type of person?
I'm both. You know, it's interesting because my husband's the engineer, so
He's
he's the
methodical too.
methodical one. I am a little bit more fly by the seat of my britches, and I'm a little more intuitive. And so I'll get a feeling about something and I'll be like, I think we need to go do this.
Hmm.
And he is a little bit more of the planner. And so it was his idea to move to different places and see what we liked. But we both felt the same.
Yeah.
When we got to Madeira, we both were like, yeah,
Yeah.
this feels right.
And you stayed
Yeah.
long enough to really get the feel for the place, right? And that's the other
Yeah.
thing, because a lot of people are just like, "Oh, I was there for 2 days and I didn't like it." It's like, come on, you can never know what it's like if you're just there for 2 days.
Right. And when we initially went, we were on vacation mode, right? We were
Yeah,
like, oh, this is great. But then when you go back to live somewhere, and plus now we're working while we're there. We have to go
exactly.
to the
Which is a
grocery store
huge
while we're there.
difference. It's a big difference
Huge
between
difference.
working. Yeah,
And we had to figure out the internet. We had to figure out cooking. We had to figure out, all the things that you have to figure out when you live somewhere.
exactly.
Um, and so that forced a different kind of integration. And then, on the weekends we would when we weren't working, we would explore and take a train and go around and visit other places.
Yeah,
So it was very much trying to absorb as much from the place that we were and travel as much as we could in that. Like when we were in the Algarve, we went from coast to coast. We went all the
mm,
way from Salima to the coast of Spain. We went to every little
wow.
town all along the Algarve because we got to sample it all. Like, what if there's a great little spot we just don't know about?
Yeah.
And then, and then we parked it for a month in a place called Praia de Luz, which is near Lagos. Explored us every day there. And then Porto, when we were up in Porto, we went to Coimbra, we went to Aveiro, we went to
So you did a lot of
Bra-
you did a lot of exploring
we did
to find the right
Braga,
spot. Yeah.
yeah, all the places. And then Madeira, we just tried to just do as much as we could when we got here. And this was the place that we both just felt like this was what was calling us all along.
Nice. Nice. Well, let's talk a little bit about health and wellness. So a lot of people are concerned about, especially when
Yeah.
you're over 50, unfortunately,
Yep.
what happens with healthcare? Like what happens if something goes
Mhm.
wrong, stuff like that. How did you deal with that?
Yeah. And so it's interesting. That's often one of the first things people ask. And it, so I'll give you a story. So number one, the healthcare in Portugal is phenomenal.
Mm,
So we have insurance that covers us when we travel back to the US,
right.
but we have been paying out of pocket up until recently. Well, we still pay out of pocket, but we pay out of pocket for services in the private healthcare system here in Portugal.
Mm.
That being
And I'm
said,
assuming it's very inexpensive compared to ours.
yes, my husband went to the dermatologist actually yesterday. He got a full body thing. They froze like one thing on his face.
I
They
get
did
one of
him
those
crazy,
too. I have one next week.
right? So they
I'm
froze
very
a couple
moly.
spots.
My wife keeps telling me you're too
Yeah,
moly. You have to keep getting
yes.
checked.
So he got a full exam. It was $50 all in. And
Wow.
it,
That's amazing.
it is, and that's like no insurance here. And now that I have my residency card, it'll be free. It won't cost a thing. And
Nice.
so that's the other thing is because we're doing the residency. Now we've got my residency card and healthcare is free. Our prescriptions are dollars. We went to the dentist, $60 all in for full x-rays, cleaning, so even paying out of pocket here, it's incredibly affordable and the
Mm,
quality is excellent.
mm.
And then once we get our citizenship, obviously, the healthcare is free. And, for a lot of Americans, healthcare is an incredible expense,
Oh,
not
right.
only just to
Absolutely.
afford insurance, but then if something happens, you could go bankrupt just
So once you
paying
get your
bills.
citizenship, pretty much everything is covered. So emergency care, all of that.
Yeah. Yeah. And so we have insurance that covers us when we go back to the US. We'll probably there is a private insurance that you can get so that you're not taking services out of the local people. And so we'll probably get private health insurance too, which is, it's going to be, a couple $100 a year.
Hmm.
And that'll take care of any sort of lingering if there was a cost, for the private healthcare system. So it it's amazing. It's efficient. It's good. If you arrive to an appointment early, they take you early. There is no
Nice.
waiting. I'm in the healthcare system. So, and I used to work in family practice as a PA, and you know, there's a lot we could learn from how things are done here. It's so efficient and so well done.
Amazing.
And it really has been top tier. We've gone to the dentist, the regular doctor, the dermatologist. We've gone, to have tests and things, and it's all been amazing.
So I have to ask this because I'm originally from Canada and we have the free healthcare there, but the taxes are super high. Does that mean you
Yeah.
have the taxes are super high in Portugal as well?
The taxes are high in general. We were able to get that NHR, so our taxes are capped at 20% for the next 10 years.
Hmm.
And so that is a tax strategy that's now gone away. So that doesn't exist.
Right.
So yes. And so if you're a retiree, you want to try to keep your expenses low, excuse me, so you're not in that super high tax bucket.
Right. Okay. So there is a downside. There is a downside monetarily in the taxes, but everything else is free. So from a health and wellness perspective,
Excuse me.
and of course, feeling it sounds like where you are, you're going for walks and stuff like that. I mean, I'm assuming you feel like you're having a much healthier lifestyle with the food and the exercise and all that than you had in the States.
But yes, walking everywhere. We walk everywhere. And getting 10,000 steps a day is easy.
Super easy. When we were in
Yes.
Greece, we couldn't get less than 14. Just getting around, just going to doing normal things and going to normal places. And then
Mhm.
here it's a struggle to get even like 6,000, 10,000 steps. It's crazy.
And part of that is the walkability.
Yep.
And, we started this whole journey too with the blue zones, walking, um, life, quality of life, life expectancy, loving where you live, and having this sense of connection. And I think that's probably the bigger bonus that we didn't even realize is that
Mm,
we walk to the grocery store. We get bread that was made that day.
mm,
Um, Fruits and vegetables are locally grown, and it's just a different quality of life. We walk to our gym, which
nice.
overlooks the ocean,
Oh, I love
and
it.
it's that focus on wellness, that focus on, you know, we simplified by getting rid of stuff, but what is replacing that is this simplicity in living life
Mm,
that feels way more enriching than beautiful couch.
right. So it's almost like you're internalizing your happiness and your wellness as opposed to externalizing it, because that's what it's like when you buy all these material things and you think that these make you happy when the reality is it's experience. So it's having a better experience as opposed to having nicer things.
Yeah, and I've always been like like I've always valued the experiences over the things. And yet I still fell victim to wanting the nice, shiny new things.
Hmm.
And I don't see that so much in European culture where there is that emphasis on stuff,
Mm.
but there's more emphasis on um, spending time with people. Like it's a different thing here to go to dinner.
Mm.
Dinners start late and they go on for hours.
Oh yeah.
And people told me that. And I was like, well, that's not really how I work. Like, I'm very efficient, like dinner at 6 and bed by 9.
Yeah,
Like
come on.
I got, that's
What
what
kind of life are you
that,
living when you do that?
right. And that's what I thought wellness looked like. And it's so interesting because if you read some of the studies about longevity, and especially if you watch the Blue Zone Netflix series, there's people that drink every day and smoke and live to their 90s, and there's something that is more important than what they're eating necessarily and what they're drinking. It's
Exactly.
also that stress free, like they are just every day is just this, it doesn't have the stressors that I think a modern American or even just a modern big city, tends to have. A lot of these blue zone areas are kind of remote,
Hmm.
and people live a very simple, a very peaceful, a very connected to the food, and to the land,
Absolutely.
And so there is a simplicity that, and I didn't really drink a whole lot in the US, but everyone drinks wine with dinner here.
Hmm.
Like it's just this, and now it's not a big thing to just get a bottle of wine with dinner. And I'm like, who drinks a bottle of wine? Like
We do.
was it? Apparently I do
No.
now too.
So it's interesting you should mention that because I've always been interested in going to Ikaria. So my family's originally from Greece, and we spent a month in Greece, May in Greece. And one weekend we flew to Ikaria because we wanted to see what the Blue Zone was like. And it was exactly like that. I mean, people lived much closer to the earth, and the pace, there was like no stress. There was no big cities. They were all villages, and everybody was just sitting in the cafeteria drinking coffee and ouzo and whatever and smoking and whatever, but and talking. But there was a lot of socializing going on. There was not much else to do because there wasn't this big industrialized machine around us, which is like, okay,
Mhm.
do this, do this, do this, do this. It's more like, you know what? We just do whatever we want, and the stress just melted away. It's amazing what those places are like. But you have to be prepared to. It's a more rural lifestyle. It's not like living in a city. It's completely different from living in a city. And I think that's part of the thing that contributes to the longevity and the lack of stress. Right.
Mhm. Yeah, and Madeira is it's bigger than a lot of people think. Like Funchal, I think, is like 170,000. Madeira itself is like 255, I think. So it's a small island,
Mm.
but it's populous. And there's the big city, and then there's an international airport, uh, the Cristiano Ronaldo airport. So he's from here, which I
I
didn't
love that.
even know who he was until, we got here and they're like, how do you not know him?
You
I'm
don't
like,
know Ronaldo? Come on.
I do now. Uh,
There's a guy, so somewhere in our neighborhood, there's a guy who actually has a painting of Ronaldo on his house. Like, I guess that guy must be Portuguese.
yeah, well, yeah. So it's definitely pace of life
Mm.
is and again, not having a house to retreat to, not having stuff that we have to take care of. It causes you to live very present moment. When
Mm.
we've had some friends that came to visit us, and they were very curious about how we did what we did. And
Hmm.
so they came to visit, and they were like, how did you do this? Like, how did you get rid of everything? What was hard? Was it hard?
Yeah.
Um, and then she said, at the end of the visit, she said, I've never really been with anybody who is so present.
Mm.
And, there are no distractions here because we don't have it. Nothing belongs to us. We have a furnished apartment. None of it belongs to us.
Right.
And so, we just get to enjoy it. There's no like, oh gosh, don't, we got to take care of that, or we got to take care of that. Like
That's
you
right. When
can
you own a
just,
home, that's exactly what you have to do. You spend a lot of time in maintenance. It's amazing how much time it
you
takes.
do. And that's the thing, is that suddenly when that's not on your plate, you've got all this time.
Yes, exactly. Well, can I
And
ask you about
that's pretty awesome.
this is fantastic. So, can I ask you about technology a bit? So, you mentioned earlier about
Yeah.
internet access, and I mean, those of us who work remotely, have location independent
Hmm.
businesses, we depend
Yeah.
on the internet. Like, have you found that
Hmm.
where it is, where you are right now, it's good, or did you have trouble finding it, or how was your search for that?
No, it was great. And it's interesting because part of when we started looking at Madeira specifically, once we decided we wanted to spend a month there, I guess in COVID, Madeira became a digital nomad hotspot.
Oh, perfect.
And so it's incredibly good
Nice.
Wi-Fi. And so for me, we have a VPN service.
Hmm.
And so we have a designated IP address that allows us to conduct business in the US, which is what's required for me to like send prescriptions and things like that.
Hmm.
So having a VPN service is helpful for conducting business um, in the US for me. I don't know that other industries necessarily need that, but for me, I did.
Well, and then what about, I guess, since you're not actually not doing, are you creating as well? I mean, are you doing uploading videos and stuff like that? I mean, do you find, because this is my issue when I travel, is always the upload speeds, right? Because I do these 1 hour long videos, and I'm trying to upload them,
Oh,
and they take 2.5 hours to upload because the upload speeds are slow. Do you ever have issues with that?
I don't do uploads, videos and things like that currently. So I can't speak to it. I don't know. I don't
Okay.
know.
So, any other words? We're all almost out of time. Any other words you might have for people who are aspiring? Because this is what we're trying to do. We're trying to help people who are aspiring to this life, to get into the life. Like, what would you suggest? What would you recommend?
Would say don't wait, because the one of the regrets of the dying is that you didn't live life on your terms and for you. And there's never going to be the perfect day, the perfect time where the stars align and you know all the ducks are in order and now you can jump. Like that just doesn't exist. That perfect time doesn't exist. I would say, that the road goes both ways. What's the worst that can happen? You jump and you don't like it, you jump back.
Hmm.
So,
Or you pivot.
in
You go
life,
somewhere else, right?
you pivot, and that's it's all a journey. And, I just don't want to look around at the end of my life and go, I really wish I would have taken that chance. So don't be afraid to take messy action, and you don't have to have it figured out all of it at the very beginning. You just have to know the next step to take. And
Right.
so figure out the first step and then just focus on taking that next step, because life is short, and there's a big world out there. And I think that from a personal standpoint, personal growth as a therapist, even encouraging people to grow beyond, you know, wanting to do the work of, like, especially inner work, there's nothing that's going to help you do that more than getting out of your comfort zone. So,
Hmm.
we got to let go of the things that feel familiar and safe in order to grow.
Yeah, I find it interesting that a lot of people say that they can just do whatever they want in whatever environment they want. But the environment that you're in really does make a huge difference about how you act, right? I mean, if you take yourself out of your environment, then you act like a completely different person, right? So your environment has a lot to do with the way you act and the way you feel.
And if you're in an environment for sure that you're so comfortable with, then what ends up happening is you live life on autopilot.
Mm,
And that's what was happening. We were just doing the same thing every day, lackluster, pull the weeds, mow the lawn, go to the grocery store, do it again, right? Like, and when you don't have to do all those things, suddenly life becomes an adventure. My husband and I got lost on a walk today, found a beautiful trail that we'd never discovered, on a random Friday. So that's what not living on autopilot allows you to do. It allows you to open yourself up to let life just unfold in a beautiful way that you otherwise would not experience.
mm. I love that. But do you need a certain level of bravery to do what you did, to just jump into going to Portugal?
I guess so. But I've always done, like, I've been the one that said, "Hey, let's sign up for an Ironman," and then go do it. "Hey, let's sign up for a marathon." Like, that's my personality. My personality is to just kind of go big or go home. So that kind of stuff doesn't scare me.
Mm,
And so I guess that's my personality to just jump. But I guess in some respects it does seem a little scary, and not everyone would feel comfortable doing
See, that's
it.
the other thing that I think is interesting is that there's people who really aspire to do it, but their personality just won't let them, right? And I think they need to
Yes.
realize that, you know what, maybe this isn't for me. No matter how amazing it sounds and all of this, like they could be sitting there watching YouTube videos for months, going, "Oh, I really want to do this. I really want to do this." But then if they look into themselves and go, "Is this do I really have the personality for this? Do I really have it, or can I make myself do this?" Right? I mean, uh,
Yeah.
would you say that that's a difficult thing to overcome?
Well, I would say, obviously not everyone's going to want to do what I've done, that just doesn't speak to them.
Yep.
I think that you have to honor what it is that's calling to you. I think the bigger thing would be to honor what you value in life. And
Mm,
and so what I try to encourage people to do is to live a life aligned with their values. And if you value living, 2 minutes from all of your grandchildren, then you're not ever going to do something like this because it doesn't align with your values.
right.
So I think the bigger question is to ask yourself what you value,
Mm,
and then pull back the lens and say, am I living a life that aligns with what I actually value? Because a lot of us live a life based on what other people expect or what other people value for us. So
right.
the bigger question isn't necessarily, just jump off the cliff and be a nomad. If that doesn't align with your values, then why would you do it? And so what I encourage people to do, kind of as a therapist, would be, ask yourself what are the things you value. I have a thing on my Substack where it's a values assessment. You get to fill this out and then really take a look at what do you value. And then the next question is, am I aligning my life with the things that I say
Mm,
matter the most to me?
mm, fantastic. I love it. So so thank you so much. This has been fantastic. This has been great. So if somebody wants to get in touch with you, what's the best way?
You can always Substack is probably one of the easiest ways because I'm the midlife nomad
Hmm.
on Substack, and then you could
It's a
always.
great Substack, by the way. I love it. I read it every time it
Oh,
comes in. It's
thank
great.
you, thank you. And
One of
then
my
of
favorites.
course, thank you. I appreciate that. Jada at soul.com, SOUL via SOLE.com. But Substack's probably the easiest, or Instagram. Um, So Soul via Soul is where I'm at. And it's basically letting the soles of your feet align with your soul's calling. So to live a life that is honoring of your soul's calling.
I love that. That's so poetic.
Thank you.
You should be a writer.
Right? I'm trying to be.
Are there any books in your future, or have you already written a book?
I've written a book, and it's really more like a guided journal. It's called the 52-week blueprint for building the life of your dreams.
I love it.
And it was inspired as we were literally building our house. And so it's got a lot of structural construction references, because it was really this metaphor for building your life while we were literally building our house. And that's available on Amazon. And it's a year-long guided journal. And it really helps you get in touch with what you value, what you love, and to kind of help you look inward and use your own internal compass as a guide for creating your life.
I love it. So I'll put all the links in the show notes so people can go
Okay.
direct. So thank you so much. This has been great.
Thank you, Chris. It's been awesome. Thank you for having me.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you so much.
All
Have a
right,
great
take
day.
care.
Oh,